Back in the day of Dungeons and Dragons, I would tell a story where orcs, goblins, and kobolds, and hobgoblins were the bad guys. But that's changed. And the question isn't so much that it's changed or if it's a bad thing or a good thing, but why did that happen? Why have orcs, kobolds, and goblins gone from being the bad guys to being playable races? Where did that change occur? There's a specific event that was caused by dungeon masters worldwide that caused the changing of goblins, orcs, and hobgoblins. So let's talk about it. In the beginning of time, orcs, goblins, and kobolds and hobgoblins were bad guys. It was a way to have an evil race. So the players, there was it was black and white. I'm going to go kill this, party of kobolds, party of goblins, party of hobgoblins. They're attacking our village. It was an easy way to have a race of individuals that were bad. And we really see this in J.R.R. Tolkien's, Lord of the Rings. The orcs, the Orcai were bad creatures. The thing is J.R.R. Tolkien did something that Dungeons and Dragons changed. They were created. They were bred from their, I'm not going to get in the lore of it, but the bottom line is magic created the Orcai to basically be nasty creatures that were designed to crush and kill and used as tools. In Dungeons and Dragons, go look at your lore. It could be similar. But one day, a lonely dungeon master decided to have his party come across goblins and orcs. And what happened? So when this encounter occurred for the first time, the party rushes in. There's basically a camp of goblins, but there were women and children for the first time. So what do the players do? Do they murder everyone? Are they bad creatures? It was the first time a moral dilemma was posed. And this was done a long time ago. Back in the 80s, I saw it done, but it was unusual. And it became more and more common, where dungeon masters were posing moral dilemmas to players in the terms of, should you be attacking these creatures or should you be conversing? And as the game went from combat focused to role-playing focused and exploration focused, as we had that transition, you'll see that those races became more palatable, meaning that we should be talking to them. Not all of them are bad. Even though in the lore, those creatures were bad, dungeon masters wanted to pose moral dilemmas. And that was the beginning of the change when it comes from goblins, kobolds, bugbears, orcs, to be playable races. The first major shift we see is in the half-orc. In the original Dungeons and Dragons, half-orc wasn't a thing. The thing is, the creation of the half-orc left orcs still being bad. What happened is the orcs were the nasties, and half-orcs were designed as an offshoot because of the orcs coming in and pillaging and basically taking advantage of the people that they were doing in a very bad way. And so, therefore, the half-orcs became a playable race at the time. The problem that we see is that half-orc very soon switched into orc. But we never really saw the orc become a fully playable race until recently. And even more recently, we see goblins and kobolds becoming playable races as well. So what happened from going from a moral dilemma to actually a playable race? In the most recent iteration of Dungeons and Dragons, we see the final shift, where all of a sudden morality and alignment disappear from the table. Yes, it's still written into the game, but what we don't have is people actually assigning alignment. More, every individual has the ability to be good or bad. And that's actually what created the idea of playable races and actually led to really the game of Dungeons and Dragons putting it as canon that goblins, kobolds, orcs, drow, all of the races that were traditionally evil all of a sudden muddied the water. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. This is just how the transition occurred. And I love the idea. So now, as dungeon masters, everything is a moral dilemma. And so I would like to see you, as dungeon masters, tell me, how do you breach this moral dilemma? How do you create that fine line to allow the players to know what's right or what's wrong? Or is everything in your game a moral dilemma? And so this is something that I like and why I use creatures such as the undead, demons, and demonic creatures, because while you can negotiate with demons and devils, there's a fine line. We know they're evil. We know they want to sue chaos, and we know that they're not going to necessarily have families, children. Or do they? And just because they're evil, is it still a moral dilemma? And so that was the transition we see. And now everything can become, almost all monstrous races, including Minotaurs, can become player characters. The problem is it sways the balance of the game because originally those creatures were bigger, badder, and beefier than the average commoner. So how do we create that balance? Do we put that line back in the sand of things being evil or good, or do we stay with the moral dilemma? These were all amazing questions and are posed by this transition that happened on tables every day. And I love to see the development of the game, and I wanted a chance to talk about the transition. Goblins, kobolds, orcs, goblins, hobgoblins were evil, and even minotaurs. And we've seen moral dilemmas posed to the players, which move them into a, hey, if they're not necessarily bad, then why can't I play them as a character? And then players saying, hey, I want to play monstrous creatures. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, the final thing is now we have to kind of go back. Everything can't be a moral dilemma at my table. I want to give my players black and white as far as this is evil, this is good, and allow them to have simple decisions. And then when the moral decisions come, they're truly moral decisions, as opposed to everything being that. What are your thoughts on this? Do you like the change? Do you like playable races? Keep it civil in the comments, but do you like the transition that Dungeons & Dragons has as having monstrous races being playable characters? I am not a fan of it because I liked that line in the sand. However, I'm not opposed to having goblins, hobgoblins, orcs as playable characters. I have to adjust to my world, and it challenges me as a dungeon master. Does it challenge you? And what do you like or dislike about this? Guys, comment, like, subscribe, share, and tell us what you think about the transition that we've seen from monsters to playable races. See you next time.